What's the first thing that pops into your mind when you see this blade? First thing that comes to mind. Badass? Perhaps you're thinking that it looks like a capable woods tool. Or maybe you're just picturing yourself cutting off zombies' heads with one fatal stroke. And you would be correct on all of the above, because this thing is an absolute beast. G'day guys, it's TK aka Ozzie Prepper. Today we're doing a tabletop review of the Cold Steel Kukri Machete. So I've had this machete for about a month now. When I first got it, I did an initial light bit of testing at home. I was super impressed with the results, with the bite of this thing, with the chopping abilities of this tool. And last Friday, me and my best mate went out, did a little bit of deer hunting, and I took it out with me into the bush, into the thick of the scrub, and really put it through its paces. And it performed. This thing is outstanding. It performed phenomenally. Like everything that I'm going to be reviewing here, until I take it out, really put it through some hard use, really learn the capabilities of this thing. I'm not going to bring it here and bring it back and front and put it in front of the camera and act like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, when I personally don't know, because I haven't tested it myself. I don't know the capabilities. I don't know its limits, and that sort of thing, So anything that I bring out here, anything that I test, you can be sure that it's got my stamp of approval. And this blade indeed has the certification of badass. So jumping straight into our specs, overall it is 18 inches. All right, the blade you guys are looking at from tip to down there is 13 inches. I believe it has a 5-inch polypropylene handle. The weight of the machete is around 15 ounces. All right, and it's 2 millimeters thick, if you guys can see along the spine there. Pretty much, same uniform thickness all the way to the tip. I do believe it's a full tang tool. So it's made of 1055 carbon steel. Has a little bit of flex, which is good in a machete. That's what you want, not too much. And you don't want it too hard. It's gonna chip out on you, and obviously you don't want the steel too soft. It's gonna roll over and that sort of thing. But this thing really is, in my opinion anyway, heat treated quite nice, and it bites like a bloody crocodile. When you're out there. Like I said, took it out in the thick of the bush. We got back to our base camp, needed to light a fire. I was going through branches and small dead trees there, probably about the size of my forearm, right at the top there, with relative ease. Like I'm amazed at the chopping abilities, the chopping capabilities of the Cold Steel Kukri Machete. It really is going to make your job out there a lot easier. It's going to minimize your work, which is what you want. You want to save those calories, and really that's just all due to obviously it's a little bit to do with the steel. I personally like 1055 steel. I know some people, metal purists, might get a little bit elite, and they can piss right off. But me personally, 1055 steel I think is a good steel. It performs the job. It performs a good job. So pretty much that's what you want, and especially at this price point, which we'll get into a little bit later on, it does an outstanding job. But the blade shape, so they call it a Kukri Machete. Like I was saying before, I know some Kukri purists might get a little bit irate at that and say, hey, Ozzie Prepper, that's not a Kukri. This is a Kukri, or if it's not made in Nepal, it's not a Kukri, etc. Look, to the average Joe, to me, it's a Kukri, or it's a Kukri-shaped machete, and it has that forward weight. It's got that forward, some knives are balanced very well. They're, you can hold it up and they've got quite a good balance. Some even have more of a balance, a lower end sort of balance. They'll be more balanced towards the handle because they'll chuck some monstrous tang on there. But with the Kukris, anyone that's used one will tell you that the weight really is forward. And when you're chopping, this thing has tremendous heft. When you bring it down, bang on a branch, on a limb, it bites like a crocodile and it will send chunks flying out. You know, it's one of those knives, or it's one of those machetes or tools, or whatever you want to call it, that you pick up and immediately you just want to swing this thing around. It just feels absolutely awesome in your hands, you know. So I was never really a big fan of kukris. I got one of my best mates, he swears by him, he loves them, and for years he's been trying to get me on, mate, you got to check out these kukris, bro, these things are unreal, this, that. And personally, I just never liked the shape of them. I just thought they looked a bit silly, and that was until I got one and I seen the devastating, what I would call the devastating chopping power capability of this of the kukri, and now I'm absolutely bloody cuckoo for kukris. This is the first one that I own, and it definitely won't be the last. I'm already eyeing off the Ontario kukri and the cold steel Gurkha kukri, which, as well as this thing performs, I can't even fathom how well of a chopper that thing will be, because like I said, this thing is only 2mm thick. It is quite light. It's only 15-16 ounces. So I'm picturing that, you know, that Gurkha kukri, it is quite thick. It has got quite a bit more heft to it. So it's just going to blow my mind, I reckon, about how well it performs. So coming back to our price point, down here in Australia, I pay $32 for this thing, which is unbelievable. You know, it's pretty much pocket change in the world of knives. Now, you can get a lot of blades, and I would, you know, I'm calling them blades for lack of a nicer word, for around $20-30, but they're going to be pieces of junk. It's going to be a piece of crap. It's not going to be something you're going to want to really take out in the field, and God forbid, if you were indeed in a survival situation, it's going to deteriorate. It's just not going to hold up to the pressure of the situation, you know. But for $32, this thing performs like an absolute beast. It's a monster of a machete. So I know in the States, I think you can get them for about $20 off Amazon. It's unreal. It's a super good price point, you know. For the value that you get from the knife, it instantly makes it worth it. And it was just one of those things that I bought when immediately after I felt it, after I'd initially used it, I'm like, I'm going to go out and buy, you know, 2, 3, maybe even 4 more of these things and just store them away. I'll probably give one to my best mate who we went out hunting with. He absolutely loved this thing. So we went on about a 6-hour stalk. We were mainly on the track, but a few times we did, you know, split off and go up into the bush. And for those of you who don't know, the weather in Victoria has been absolutely chaotic for about the past month or two. We've had some of the worst weather ever. And, you know, in the thick of the scrub, there was so many fallen trees. There's lots of blackberry bushes and that kind of thing up there. So it's going to be your best friend, you know, when you're walking through, to hack through. It does have that, it is light enough to hack through that, or that light sort of shrub, you know, to get those thistles and that kind of thing, those thorns away from you. But then it does also have the heft, again, thanks to that kukri edge, where you can go through branches, you know, about as big as my forearms, with relative ease, you know, relative ease. I also, once we got back to camp, I did a little bit of batoning with it, and like I said, it's only a 2mm thick knife, so you are going to have to be considerate of that when you take it out. You're not going to be going through, you know, 8-inch logs, etc., straight through the middle. I was going somewhat to the side, and I was really surprised. I didn't think it would baton as well as it did. It did. I would consider it, you know, a pretty good batoning tool. It also throws incredibly well. So that's why I want to get a few more. You know, for $30, you're laughing, really. For as good as they throw, for as much fun as you can have with this thing, and for how useful it is, for how much easier it's going to make your life out there. Cold Steel were absolutely spot on when they call this thing their workhorse, because it is a bloody workhorse and a half, you know. So, let's talk a little bit about the sheath before I wrap it up and give you guys my final thoughts. This is a sheath that it comes with. Now, I believe it's a Cordura. They call it a Corex. Really, really simple sheath design. It's got the two buckles there and the other one there, which, you know, hold the machete in place. It's got this nice hardened plastic end up the bit here, which is, you know, they say it's a safety measure, which is it's nice to have. You know, you're not going to impale yourself on your kukri, God forbid. And then it's got the belt loop, you know, right there. It's a pretty decent belt loop. Now, initial impressions of the sheath. When I first got it, I thought it's nothing to write home about. I've seen a lot of people. Another thing I want to bring up. I've seen a lot of people on the net, on YouTube, and on the forums and etc. complaining about this thing, saying, "Oh, it should have come with this sheath," and "Oh, it didn't come sharp," and etc. Mate, you're getting a $20, $30 knife. Shut the hell up. Pull your head out of your ass. Shut up. They've got to keep the price down somehow. You know, you're not getting a $200, $300 tops knives. You're not paying $500, $600. It's not a bussy bushwhacker. So shut up. Be content with what you get. So it wasn't going to be something that I wrote home about, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't totally not functional. So I thought I'd put some cord around here, and that way when I had it in the belt loop, I could tie it around my thigh, tie it around up above my knee. But one thing I noticed was you don't need it. And like I'm about to say, this sheath, I thought it was average before I took it out, but after taking it out on our hunt and using it and having it up there on my belt for you know, 5-6 hours, trekking through some pretty treacherous bushland at some stages, I did not notice this thing was with me. It doesn't bounce around. It doesn't clang around. Obviously, it's going to depend a little bit on your belt loop, but I had it sitting on my left side, on my left hip, you know, and I did not notice this thing was with me. I think there was 1 or 2 times when we sat down on some fallen logs when I just had to slightly move it a little bit back on my belt, because it would get in the way, and that was on you know, like a 6-hour trip. Absolutely phenomenal. So I'm really, really happy with that sheath, you know. It does have the 2 belt buckles there, but I've discovered you just need to take that one off, and then, you know, you can slide it straight out. So yeah, overall it's an alright sheath. It does its job. Like I said, it's at that price point where you're going to you're not going to complain about it if you're a mature adult, you know. A lot of people have also complained about the fit and finish. I've seen people complaining about how dull it was. Dudes, I've got to keep the price down. Like I said, you're not going to be able to sell something at $20, $30 if you're putting an excellent fit and finish on there, if you're putting a razor sharp edge on there, if you're putting a Kydex sheath on there. Get the hell out of here. You're just not going to be able to do it. So go out and buy an expensive knife, and then you're going to get all those sort of, you know, extras with it. I think it would even possibly be worth investing in a Kydex sheath for this. Some people are going to say, Ozzie Prepper, you're crazy. It's a $20, $30 machete. You're going to pay $80, $90 for a Kydex sheath. But like I said, I'm going to buy a few more of these things, and then having that Kydex sheath really just gives you those extra options of mounting it securely onto your pack, and that kind of thing, you know. And I can see that sheath dying a lot sooner than what the Kukri Machete does. My final thoughts, guys, or my final thoughts rather, is this is an excellent tool. Definitely go out and buy one. You will not be disappointed. You know, once you take a little bit of time and put a good edge on there, this thing bites, like I said, like a bloody crocodile, and you're not going to be disappointed. It really is going to make your life out there a lot easier. It's not going to let you down in the field. I think Nos did some tests on this, and he was, you know, mind blown about it. Outperforms, you know, $200, $300, $400 knives. So definitely worth your money. It's definitely a good investment. I'm really happy to have added it to my arsenal. If you enjoy the vid, guys, please hit the subscribe button. Share it out to your mates. I'm trying to get my channel going. Hit me up with any constructive feedback. And until next time, take care.